What's up, guys? It's your boy Mike, Hot Crypto Mining, and today I got my boy Max Voltage with me. He's going to explain why Helium has just gone under, and I don't know much about it, so let's all find out together and see what he thinks. Max, what's up, man? How are you?
I am doing just fine. How you doing?
Oh man, I am great. I cannot complain. Everything's going well with Terra. Everything's moving in the right direction, so that's good. So Max, what's going on with Helium? Explain this to me. I have no idea. Like, I keep hearing negative stuff in the news. Like, what's going on?
Well, I mean, it kind of depends on where you started with the project, because there's obviously been problems going all the way along. But the latest thing that I'm aware of is the whole Solana issue.
Right.
They decided that yes, their validator network is not working. They are running into total problems. They are tired of developing a blockchain that hasn't been successful. And then they went ahead and chose Solana as their blockchain that hasn't been reliable. Right. And users, node owners, validators, none of them are happy about it for various reasons. I mean, validators are being taken out of the network, because that's all going to be handled by Solana, so they're not happy about it. Your hotspots are like, it's great in theory, but what happens when Solana goes down and then I can't make any money with my hotspots? So yeah, it's when you have so many choices that you could make, why pick that one?
Right.
Obviously makes people wonder, what was the motivation?
Right.
As with anything, there's obviously a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. Yeah, I just don't see this turning out well for Helium to pick a network that has as many problems as Solana has. So
I know there was a lot of things about the hotspots, because it took me 6 months to get mine. And then there was this talk about they were moving to 5G and that they were all going to be rendered like inept, like they weren't going to work. The ones that people waited for. Did they fix that? Did they rectify that issue?
Well, so did they rectify the issue? No, the issue's still there. But what they basically said was, oh, all you Helium, your current Helium owners, yes, we're not getting rid of the LoRaWAN network. We're not getting rid of it. We're just adding the 5G network.
Oh, okay.
But at the same time, Helium either innovated and went along with this,
right,
or they were going to get left behind, because there were a bunch of other networks that were doing 5G. So Helium's like, look, we got to do something. So I guess time will tell to see whether or not they continue to develop and try to get real customers onto the LoRaWAN network. But I think in reality, most people will go towards the 5G network, as your hotspots are going to help fill in coverage for all these IoT devices.
Right.
So yeah, time will tell. I think there's going to be a point at which all the current hotspots, my guess is that they will be worth whatever the Raspberry Pi is going to be worth inside of it.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I did the Helium miner into a Flux node, which was totally my fault, by the way, that it took 2 weeks to get done. I was ready to throw it across the street, but I guess it was just me being stubborn. And
I'm completely aware.
Yeah, because I had to call you. We were on the phone for like 3 hours trying to figure it out. It ended up being my fault, but nonetheless, yeah. And King thinks they're just paperweights. So, I look at a project, right, like Helium, and I wonder to myself, like, hey, where did you go? When do you think all the negative press for Helium started to really come about? Like, where do you think was their turning point as a project where people started to say, okay, this is not being run right?
Well, I mean, it's happened along the way. Right. So, you had Helium, and everybody was trying to get their devices, right, and they couldn't get their devices. So that was like the first negative. Then as people were getting their devices, they're like, this thing's not making me any money. There was a lack of education as to, guys, I mean, who are they selling these things to? They're selling them generally to miners. I mean, miners are going to be one of your major customers, because they're just trying to get involved in another crypto project that they think has a use case, has value, all those kinds of things. I mean, honestly, that's what tied me into it. It had a use case. Unfortunately, there were some half truths, let's put it that way. They said that Lime was a customer. That's a half truth. They weren't ever a customer. They had a trial.
Okay.
Same thing with Salesforce. So they had them listed on their website as customers.
Right.
And that really, and so honestly, that was for me, that was where I lost faith in Helium.
Right.
Was when I saw that. So, but anyway, going back to Helium, I mean, it's an RF network, and miners are not used to dealing with RF. They don't know. I mean, you have people that live at low elevation, surrounded by hills. They plug this thing in their house, and they're like, what the hell?
Right.
This thing's not making me anything. Well, yeah, because you don't understand that it requires, line of sight, or, if you have line of sight, it's going to work a heck of a lot better.
Right.
And, some miners seek to understand, and other miners are just like, I'm just plugged this thing in. I thought it was supposed to make me some money, and it didn't. Right.
So one of the major complaints that I hear from the community and that people say is their voting system, and that their HIP has been floundering since May of this year. Have you heard anything about their voting system? Do you know? What's the big? What are people talking about? Because there's supposed to be one hotspot, one vote, but I guess it's entity weighted. I mean, how does it work?
So basically, it's based on the amount of H&T you have.
Okay.
So as has been disclosed, there are people that got in very, very early, and they got a ton of HNT through their hotspots or just being involved in the project. Well, this is their top 100 encompasses, I don't know what the exact number is, but it encompasses a vast majority of the HNT. So it's like, okay, well, if you're going to have a voting system that is going to be based upon the amount of HNT, kind of like a stock would be with a company.
Right.
Well, what's the point in voting? Because your
sense.
one little vote is not going to make a big enough difference against these huge whales that have way more votes than you do. And therefore, the project is only being directed by what will enrich the people that have the most HNT. That in some cases could be a good thing, and in some cases could be a really bad thing.
Right.
Let's just take a look at another project called Ethereum that went proof of stake, and now they got some issues. And so again, depending on your point of view, it could just be just fine the way it is. I would certainly like to see one miner, one hotspot, one vote.
Right.
I think that would motivate more people to get involved, honestly.
Right. So another thing is, I hear that cheaters run rampant on the network. There's an estimated 10 to 15% of hotspots are cheating, and they get 25% of the rewards pool. Like, how does Helium go about stopping people from cheating on the network? Because personally, I did know somebody who told me that they had probably like 60 of them all lined up in the same spot, and they manipulated their software because they said it's easy to get into and it's been easy to manipulate, and they're cheating. They're cheating the network. It's not how the network is supposed to work. How can Helium go about fixing this problem? I mean, this is a major problem. Like, if you can manipulate their software and their network, and you can plug 60 miners on your house, what stops everybody else from doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I know for a while they were, I don't know if they still are, but they were keeping a cheat list of cheaters, and then basically making it so that they could basically turn them off. That seemed to be pretty short-lived. But yeah, I honestly don't know enough about how they could prevent it, other than I believe that there have been multiple proposals on ways to stop, or at least reduce the amount of cheating that goes on out there, because it's not hard to find.
Right.
All you got to do is look at a well spaced out network in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
They spoof their GPS.
Yep.
Or spoof their location.
Yep.
And that's basically how they do it. They spoof their location. They put all their hotspots in a completely remote area where nobody else is around, and they're all doing proof of coverage off of one another.
Right. So do you think, so I read somewhere that a former employee of Helium, it now hosts and operates 60% of their validators. Have you heard anything about this?
I hadn't heard that. I read the same thing you did, but I had not heard that. I know that the validator network has been, like I said, it's been a big issue,
right?
That they haven't had enough, and that they go down. There's been a lot of problems with it, and that's the reason why they're moving to another blockchain. Now, again, picking Solana, I wouldn't exactly agree with, but that's the reason why they're picking it. They want to take the validators out of the network because they've been such an issue.
If you were in charge of Helium and you took it as it is right now, what would be the first 3 steps that you would implement to fix the network issues that you see are the worst case?
Wow, you're really putting me on the spot.
Why not?
I honestly
give me the first move you would make.
Know enough to make one where I would say, yep, this is absolutely it. But some of the things that I would be looking at and be researching if I was in charge, which I'm not going to be, but if I was in charge, I would certainly look at a way to stop the cheating. No question.
Right.
That it has been an issue. There's been a lot of proposals. You got to do something. Something to reduce the amount of cheating out there. I mean, that's probably primarily the thing. The other part is level with your users. Does LoRaWAN have a future? Right. I mean, that's really the key. What are you doing to promote the functionality of LoRaWAN, and what does it provide that 5G doesn't? Right. You know, sell your hotspot users on why LoRaWAN should still be relevant.
So you're saying that they need to sell people on the value of what LoRaWAN is. So what do you think is the value of having LoRaWAN? So, I mean, I'm not sure if this would work, but I mean, I'm thinking of what is the benefit of it? It has long coverage. So if you have 5G, you know, that's going to be that's a shorter wavelength. Therefore, it's not going to have as great a coverage. You need more cells. Well, right.
When you're out in the middle of nowhere, you need something that's going to have long reach. Longer frequencies, lower frequencies, longer wavelengths are going to give you greater reach with, you know, as long as you have, you know, line of sight. Right. So these are some areas where it could benefit. The issue though is where are all the hotspots? Right. All the hotspots are in the cities.
Yeah, they are, right?
So it's kind of a dichotomy there. Is like, well, if it's really where it's going to benefit is going to be out in the middle of nowhere, then why are all these hotspots in the city? So I don't know. That's just something that, you know, how could you motivate people to find spots out in the country to move their hotspots to? Right. That's just something that's been kind of bouncing around in my head, thinking that's an area. And I know that there's been like farmers and things that have had some projects that they've been developing using LoRaWAN and using their own hotspots to implement these features. So I don't know. Those are just some things, but it's about being out in the middle of nowhere where there's not enough coverage. And then you also have, you know, third world countries, or, you know, countries that don't have the same cellular coverage. Right. These type of networks would really benefit in those areas. But again, that's not where the hotspots are in the greatest amounts. Right.
Well, that's interesting, because there are a lot of places in the world that people can't even get basic internet, which, you know, could be access to emergency services, cell phone signals, all that stuff. I think that's a very important point. There's a person that we both admire, Patrick Guillen, and I honestly, I think about what he says all the time. He says, what problem are you fixing? You know what I mean? What solution are you bringing to the table? And we see a lot of these issues with other projects as well. So very interesting take on it, Max. Thank you so much, man. I know I put you on the spot, but you know me, and I thought it was great to have you on and talk about it. There's a lot of people who don't know what you know, and we want everybody to be educated on what the real issues are before they make any big investment. You know, they can kind of come to their own conclusion. So Max, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on, and it was good. We'll do another one soon. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Have a great night, guys. I will talk to you guys soon. We're out.